So as we move along, we're going to now get, as we get into the second video, we get even more rules. We have a few more rules of inference that we're going to look at. And so, you know, if you click on here, you're just simply going to get a few more rules that you get to apply. And then you get to apply a few more of these rules. There's nothing particularly you know, there's just a few more of these rules. This lesson, on the other hand, is going to be fairly short, and so I'm just going to I'm going to give you 3 more rules, but you'll just have to kind of work through using all 8 rules of inference and recognizing them in the homework. Now, if you click on the answers part of the homework here, you'll get the answers, but one thing to keep in mind is you'll get the answers to everything for this homework, but you'll also get the homework answers for the next Module 3 lesson as well. And so please keep that in mind, is that answer sheet has both. Now, if we go back to our sheet that we had on the main page, we've, you know, gone through the first 5 rules of inference. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to look, after we've done those first 5 rules of inference, we're going to now move on and do the last 3. And so last 3 begin with addition. Addition is basically anytime you have any statement true, like P is true, then you can add a wedge statement, P wedge Q, and you still have a true statement. Why? Because one of the disjuncts is already true. And so this can be, you can add anything you want. It's kind of a fun rule because it's like saying, you know, let's say, for example, you are watching the video. That's true, obviously, because you're listening to me talk right now. Or you're listening to the video, I should say. And so you are working on logic. You are watching the video. Something like that would be our statement. You could add on or, and it could be anything. I am doing my homework, or I'm flying to the moon. I am doing my homework, or I am eating cheesecake. Maybe you are doing both, but the case is that as long as one of the disjuncts is true, the other can be added on and it remains a true statement. Conjunction is really nothing more than saying if you have 2 separate ideas, you can combine them. If you know P is true, you know Q is true, you can combine them into one statement. For example, if you know Paul is here and you know Quentin is here, then you can combine that into one statement. Paul and Quentin are here. You don't have to keep them separate. It's really a pretty simple move. The last and probably the most difficult of all these rules, just because it's kind of a weird rule, although it makes perfect sense, is the constructive dilemma. The constructive dilemma basically is where you have 2 hypothetical statements combined on one line with a plus sign. And what you do is you have a statement like, if Paul is here, then Quentin is here. If Ryan is here, then Steve is here. Paul or Ryan is here. Therefore, Quentin or Steve is here. Basically, it's saying that if you know that one of the 2 antecedents is true, then you'll be able to know that one of the 2 consequences is true. You don't know which one, but you know one of the 2 consequences is true. And so, what you can do is you can use this with a constructive dilemma to find, what is a great way to set up like a constructive dilemma is a great way. If you knew like Q wasn't true, then you would know that, if P or QR is true and you know Q isn't true, well, you could then prove S is true by doing a constructive dilemma and then using the S and doing it via a disjunctive syllogism. But the beauty of a constructive dilemma is basically the idea that if one of those antecedents is true, then you know one of the consequences is true. So if you have a statement like, if you do your homework, then you'll do well in the class, and if you go to the movies, then you'll not do well in the class. So it's either the case that you'll do your homework or you'll go to the movies, and so you'll either do well or you won't do well. Okay, I mean, it follows, it makes sense. I think most of us can kind of say, yeah, if one of those antecedents is true, is one of those consequences true? We don't know which one. We know one of the antecedents is true, therefore we know one of the antecedents is true, and that's all a constructive dilemma is. It is honestly probably one of the ones that I look to the least. It's not a commonly used one, but it is one that is useful sometimes in logic. It is part of our reasoning process. So if you then go to the homework is basically the same as the other, but in this one it's really short. It's just 10 problems, and I'm asking you to look to see which of these rules have been used, and they can be any of those first 8. And as always, remember, you can have fairly complex things in there. I believe this is the one I have online. This part here, this G horseshoe, E horseshoe, F, should be down here below 8, but somehow it got bumped up. So if that's the same way on yours, if it's appearing the same way, then just keep that in mind.